Hi, Chaplain Steve with another video, and I'm going to say use guys. And some of you may be from the East Coast or from Chicago, and that's where I'm from. So instead of saying y'all, we say use guys. And that may sound familiar to some of you out there. But anyway, what I'm going to talk about in this video are really two subjects. One of which, things kind of go in cycles. We either have ND experiences, or sometimes I have patients that are in here talk about their family members visiting them. That had passed away. And the other I'm going to talk about too is the ND experience of a woman who was in the light. She talked about that in pretty good detail about it. But let me just go ahead and start off with the first one, and that is it comes in many different forms. Dreams, sometimes spirits visit it that way. Their object things are being moved around, and sometimes just basically you feel a presence and you kind of know who they are. This one patient that I had, she was in here and she was pretty sick. She was not doing too well, but the good news, she got through it and she got discharged. But during that time, we would talk. I would check on her, see how she was doing, and she was telling me a story about her mother who had passed away about a year and a half ago. And about a year and a half ago, she didn't have any, right after that, she didn't have any kind of experience, but she started having them thereafter. And what happened, she was one of the ones that you can feel the presence, but also the objects were being moved, and one of which is her diamond ring. And it was her mother's diamond ring. So there's a little bit of background on that. But anyway, she would wear the diamond ring, and then she would take it off and put it in the jewelry box, and then come back next morning and take it. One time she did that, and she put it in the jewelry box. She came back the next day, and it was gone. She couldn't find it. She couldn't remember. And I talk about being a senior. Things go in 1 year, and boy, at the speed of light, they go out the other. So sometimes I wonder how we get through the day being a senior. But anyway, she was really worried about it. She couldn't, and this went on for a couple of days. She just couldn't remember where she put it. She thought maybe left it at work. She maybe left it in the car. She looked in the car, wherever. And about 2 or 3 days later, she said her mother, the presence came, and her mother was telling her where the ring was. There was another spot in the house where the mother would keep certain things, kind of put things in there. And she told him that's where the diamond ring, you're going to find the diamond ring there. And guess what? That's exactly where the diamond ring was. So sometimes things like that, they kind of manifestate themselves in a lot of different ways. I said like dreams or having objects moved. Another guy's story is he was an elderly guy too, and he said when he went to work, he talked about his father. So when he used to go to work, he'd come back and he'd empty his pockets and put the money on the counter near the kitchen, whatever. And the next day when he was going to work, he would pick up, the money, and sometimes he had quarters, whatever. And so one time the next morning he was going to work. This time back, he was telling me this kind of a past history, but he was going to work, and he knew that he put 4 quarters on the counter. He knew that he put it right there. And he goes there, and they're not there. Just totally gone. And like all of us, we kind of did I put it there? Did I take it there? Did I maybe forget where I put something or whatever? We all go through that. I go through that quite a bit. It's finding out, where the heck did I put that? But in this case, he was really wondering where the 4 quarters went. And he and his father, when his father was alive, they would go to the den. There was a computer room, and they kind of do all kinds of things, one of which being on the internet. And so he felt the presence, and the 4 quarters were gone. He felt the presence, and he had an idea where the 4 quarters were. He went into the den, and right next to the computer, right next to the mouse, 4 quarters. So as I said, he knew that his father was there, and just the father was letting him know he's there. He comes to visit every once in a while. So those are 2 stories. One other story too, that was a brother and sister. And the sister was in the hospital too, and she talked about her brother who was killed quite suddenly, and I think he died in a car accident. And for some period of time after that, he would come to visit her. It was a house that he was really familiar with, and sometimes, which you probably already know, that sometimes spirits have a hard time adjusting, and sometimes when they're taken suddenly, it takes a little while to adjust. So she felt her brother being there, and he was going through this kind of adjustment. And after a period of time, he left. And so whatever transpired, there was just that he had, he finally accepted what happened to him. But that happens, and so as I said, there are many ways that that manifest. But family members do visit. And the one thing I want to make a comment too, I've said this before, that everything and anything is possible with God, and everything and anything is possible with God. And whatever we can imagine, God can do that. And but what's even more astounding is that anything He can imagine, it can be. Anyway, I'm just throwing that in because all the stuff that I'm talking about is all feasible and plausible on how things happen. I'm going to talk about real quickly too about an Indian experience about a woman who was also she was actually middle-aged, and she had experience about being in the light. She had an Indian experience, but her experience, and I think there are other cases too where people have an experience of kind of the life before they were born, and we talked about this once before. But this one, it was about being in the actual light, being born in the light. And from what she was saying, we're all born out of the light. The question, and I thought was interesting, what she brought out was the idea of consciousness. Where does it begin? And where it begins is in that light. And that consciousness is who you are. And when she was saying that being in the light, there's no body form as such, but your thoughts or who you are defines that space. She said there are billions of souls, just billions of just billions of souls in there in the light. And she talked about being when you're first come into existence, you're actually kind of an infant. And said you felt you're well taken care of, you're nurtured, you're being watched out for, you felt very safe the way she was describing it. And it was interesting though. But she said that being in the light, and then when you get to a certain point, you are taken out of the light, and you go into the experience that all of us kind of go through. We go through all the different journeys there is in our existence. But anyway, I thought it was interesting, and like you said, we're all born out of the light. I'm going to go ahead and end it here, but I'm going to talk about something else too that I just want to bring up. And at the last couple of days, or sometimes we've been seeing stuff on the news, sometimes we see stuff. And sometimes I get on the internet, or I kind of see what's going on, and I just got to tell you, I'm going to use the Lord is my shepherd, the Psalm 23. Goodness and kindness follow me all the days of my life. And somehow in these times we're kind of feeling separate, and all I'm trying to say to you guys, goodness and kindness go a long way. Not only do you respect and honor others, but you also respect and honor yourself, and it can go a long way. And the biggest thing too is how you treat others, and that's how you're really judged. And it's not the big things that you do; it's the small incidental things that you don't even think about, but you react, and how you react is really who you are. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. But I was just kind of surprised by what goes on. Yeah, I just want to talk about it, and we're going through quite a lot. We're going through a lot right now as far as everything that we're watching, everything we're seeing, everything we're hearing. And there's a lot to digest, a lot to take in. And the other thing I just want to remind you too, God's with you. And I really want to make that known. And sometimes we all kind of think that, sometimes it's a distance or whatever, but He's really not. And there's a big picture. It's far more grand than we can imagine. But the important thing is that I want to reiterate really is that goodness and kindness follow all the days of our lives. If you live by that, you'll be just fine. And the other thing about it too, goodness and kindness follow all the days of life. How you treat others, and they will be fine. How you treat them. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here, and I really appreciate your time. And as always, I hope that your day is going well. And thanks again for watching this video. Thanks again.